Welcome! Welcome! Welcome to this week's episode of Lilith's Live Show. Today with a topic very, very dear to my heart. We are talking about ritual descents, shamanic descents today. I'm going to share with you what that is and why that is so important and how to do that. So let's see who wants to join me here live. Hi to everybody who is on the recording. Please say hi to me in the comments. Let me know how you're doing today. Good, I see people who are also joining me live here already. Say hi to me. Let me know how you are today and what you are excited to learn about today. Pop something in the comments. Want to know if they're working. Oh, yay. Here is Rachel. Hi. So beautiful to have you here. Kia, welcome. Who else is here with me? I am so excited to share with you today. I'm going to go into a lot of detail about the ritual descent that I just did. Just came back from Italy like 36 hours ago. And so, yeah, it's a perfect timing to talk about descending into the dark, to avoid all that drama that we often create in our lives. And it's a perfect time to talk about it with the fall equinox around the corner. Betsy, you're doing great. Yes, me too. Thank you. Esty, welcome. Kia, thank you. I'm excited to share about it. Hi, Star. Lovely to have you here too. How are you doing? Good. I say let's dive right in. So the fall equinox is coming up. It's when day and night are of equal length all over the planet. It's a day of balance where light and dark, masculine and feminine, inner and outer are balanced. And that is as it should be. And yet, I don't know about you, but I feel that it's often, it's often all about the light for us, right? Who feels like that is what life is all about? It's all about the light. I definitely know that I did for a long time, and that's what our cultures teach us, right? We all tend to shy away from the dark, from death, from winter, from decay. Our societies are all about fun, pleasure, growth, and summer, all right? Hi, Polly, welcome. Rachel is feeling chilled and happy. Oh, I love hearing that. And Star too. Good, good. Everybody's feeling great. I love that. So what happens when there is only growth, growth, growth? What happens? Let me know in the comments. We've witnessed it again and again, and yet as cultures, as societies, we still seem to, miss that this is just what life is like. Life is cyclic, right? If there's only growth, 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 then the stock exchange crashes, economies crumble, and Mother Earth suffers as she is exploited by monocultures. Species become extinct because they are constantly hunted, etc., etc. And obviously COVID, same thing, right? I mean, we wouldn't be in this situation if people didn't breed animals, right? This is all about the more and the everything, right? This is what this is about, and it's a big problem. And the same thing, that happens to our cultures and societies when it's all about growth, 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 light, 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 more, more, more. The same thing happens to us if we shy away from the dark for too long. Everything that we have built comes crashing down our ears. So who has experienced something like that happening? Exactly, Betsy, like a garden untended. Good morning, Tennis. Hi, Janina. No rest. Exactly, Polly. That's a really important point. When there's only growth, 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 then there is no rest. That is very true. Which you're saying you used to try and avoid, but I now value the dark so much as I know it is necessary and so valuable. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Betsy, imbalance. That's what happens, right? It's an imbalance. We are scared of the dark, the unknown, the inner, but really there is no need to. The dark is just part of an eternal cycle. After death, what comes after death? Rebirth. Okay? So really all of our fears are in vain. And the reason why we are so afraid is because we have been buying into the lies of our cultures about eternal youth and beauty and the accumulation of objects and money, and we have not been taught to let go, to give in, to surrender, to give up, to sacrifice. But we can learn to. And when we do, the drama disappears and we find the dark half of life a friend. There are no horrors waiting in the dark. Horrors are created when people don't face the darkness inside of themselves. The darkness itself is nothing bad, right? But if you ignore it, if you stuff it down, if you hide it, it will twist and distort you, and then people become monsters, or they just end up lost. It's in the darkness that we relive the struggles and hardships that we have endured. But these shadows are not the dark, right? The dark isn't negative or bad. It's just where we are forced to face ourselves and life. Nighttime, winter, death, they are a mercy. A time to surrender, to let go of what no longer serves, to replenish ourselves in the depths, to be reborn from the confrontation with silence and our raw, unpolished selves, our subconscious. And from there we are reborn, either literally in a new body or metaphorically into a brighter version of ourselves. You know, we have then made space for more light, more joy, more love. And while we take all of that light and joy and love in, other stuff comes in too, right? That doesn't really serve us. That serves us at that moment, but not in the long run. So we need another round of darkness to cleanse ourselves of that again. So it is really not light versus dark and one wins. We need both. And when we willingly go into the dark, it might be hard. Yes, we might suffer. We might need, a lot of courage to face ourselves, and we definitely have to let go of a lot of the people we love, the concepts we hold, the self-image we hold of creature comforts. But in the end, it's a relief. And the thing is, when we don't do it willingly, we are forced to do it. It has to happen. Life is cyclic, and we as women embody that. So when we don't give in, when the darkness calls, we are dragged into the dark, and that's not fun, right? That's where the drama comes in, and it's not the dark that creates the drama, it's us by resisting the dark. Does all of this make sense so far? Any questions that have come up for you so far? Hey Magda, lovely to have you here. Melissa, when I think of darkness, I automatically think of light. That is beautiful. Yeah, so much expansion is held in the dark. Absolutely. So there are really myths from all around the world that are full of stories about women descending into the underworld, losing everything they hold dear, and then being reborn as who they really are, fully stepped into their destiny. So there is the Sumerian myth of Inanna, who was originally called Lilith, by the way, interestingly. and the Greek legends of Psyche and Persephone. And Persephone's story is the one that makes it really easy to understand how all of this descent, what the purpose is of a descent. So Persephone is the daughter of Demeter, the goddess of the fields, who makes the corn and the fruit ripen. And Persephone is always with her, and she doesn't even have a name at the start of the story, right? She's just this daughter of this goddess who accompanies her mother everywhere. But then she makes her descent into the underworld, and she becomes queen of the underworld, wife of Hades. So she had to give up her mother and her beautiful, sunlit, carefree life, but she was rewarded with her destiny, with a life of her own. And she gets to see her mother again. This is where it gets even more beautiful. Every 6 months, she comes up from the underworld and brings spring along with her. So she's literally a symbol of the fact that half of life is light and half is darkness. It's just so beautiful, right? But this myth does not give us any details of how she makes her descent, how that actually happens, right? So how can we meet the dark willingly? How can we make a descent? Now, through my training in shamanism, my work as a shaman and journeying every day, is really very apparent to me how it works. So to all those of you who have already learned shamanic journeying with me, I hope you will already have an idea of how this works. Kia is saying this makes so much sense. Good, I love that. Magda, I feel I'm on a regression phase. All what I started lately is stuck. Yeah, we're going to talk about what that might mean later on. Makes sense. I'm not fond of winter coming. Represents the dark to me, I guess. Yeah, I feel you. I felt like that for a really long time too, and yet I was somehow always pushed in that direction. I lived in Scotland twice in my life. First in St. Andrews, where I was literally like blown away every day walking to uni by the fierce, super cold wind. And then again in Findhorn, which I loved despite the cold. I think that was somehow me learning how to embrace the dark and the cold. So the first step in a descent, and something we have to do anyway, is accepting that life is made up of light and darkness. And also by realizing that darkness is mercy. It's where we can show ourselves naked and raw. It's where we can, give up all pretenses, where we can give in to tears and fits of rage. It's where we are safely held by the earth herself, who gives birth in the dark. And we realize that we are what she gives birth to. And we are also giving birth to ourselves, and giving birth is hard, right? Anybody who has known childbirth will know what I'm talking about here. But birth is the path to life and light. And the second step is to be willing to honestly and courageously face what is going on in your life and within yourself. So really sit with some difficult questions. What have you been running from? What are you putting off? What are you afraid of? This is what you have to face. So I recommend do it now, willingly, because that will be so much easier. Pick a topic and then let yourself be taken into the darkness to deal with it. So how do you do that? With a descent. That's what it is called when we go down into the dark to face ourselves. And we can do that in many different ways. The importance is first to have a clear intention, and then to find a pathway that leads down into yourself. You need to know how to access yourself on the deepest level. Now, in shamanism, we have a super simple, very helpful way of experiencing these different layers, these different levels of our being directly. And that is shamanic journeying. On a shamanic journey, we can travel the upper, the middle, and the lower world. Okay? So who knows what I'm talking about here? Who wants me to explain? Hi, Jessica. I'm going to sum it up really shortly, and if you have more detailed questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments. So basically, here, where we live our daily lives, that is the middle world, right? It's ordinary reality, what we mostly experience, what we can see with these two physical eyes, what we can touch. That is ordinary reality, and it happens here in the middle world. But the middle world has also an energetic layer. And that is what we can see on a shamanic journey. So in the trance state, you would be able to go out into your garden, and all of a sudden you wouldn't only see the trees, but you would also see the devas, right? The nature spirits, for example. And from the middle world, we can go up into the upper world, which is the superconscious, which is where we meet our highest self, which is where we go about our soul purpose, where we meet with ascended masters and other spirit guides. And you can go downwards from the middle world into the lower world, which is where you deal with all matters about your manifested life, your incarnated self, which is, it's the subconscious, where you deal with all the hidden aspects, right, of your life. And this, in an ascent, obviously, is going downwards. Ganna, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Please let me know if that was a good explanation, if you need more details. Nicola is with me. Nicola is one of my apprentices. So, good. Okay. So, what I really want to explain also is the difference between the lower world and the underworld, right? So many people confuse the two, and they think they're the same, but they're not the same. So the lower world is the subconscious, like I said, right? And the underworld is the lowest layer of the lower world. Okay, so it comes at the very bottom, but it is not the place where the dead go. That's a misunderstanding, at least from the way I have experienced it and learned it. The dead, from my experience, and I have done a lot of transition work, that's what I did a lot of in the beginning of my shamanic training. For some reason, the dying were drawn to me and their relatives, and I did a lot of that. I still do sometimes. And when you do transition work, you guide people from this world into the bardo. And the bardo is the realm between the realms. So it is non-local. It is neither in the middle world nor in the upper world, nor in the lower world. It is non-local, and it is just a place full of light. That's all you can see. That's all I can see as an incarnated being right now, who is not transitioning from one life to the next. And this is the place where we go to process this life and to prepare for the next. Okay? So different. There's a difference there. So our deepest selves, right, the ones that we need to deal with in the dark, we meet in the lower world. And obviously there's not just shamanic journeying, right? There's also hypnosis, for example. But why I love shamanic journeying for this is because it's the most powerful, because you can literally see the energetic pathway that you're going down. And that conscious experience doubles the power of transformation. Because when you're in hypnosis, maybe you've experienced that, it's just different, right? You're being guided, but you're not awake, you're not conscious, you might not even remember what happened afterwards, which, is sort of limiting the kinds of the depths you can reach, in my experience. So a descent is a ritual. It's a conscious act that considers of an outer layer, okay? That is the what you do in the ritual, and the where you do it, and the how you do it. So you might decide to, this is the form of the ritual, right? You might decide to do what I did, an extended ritual where you take a few days, and you might do it as a traveling, like I did, or you might just go to a place in nature close to where you live. It might just take 1 hour or 2 hours. You might do it during one night. You might do it during a whole full moon, a full moon cycle. you might do it for the whole duration of a winter. Like, this is the form of the ritual. It's how long it is, it's the form you give it, it's also what you do, what are the ritualistic acts, like, will you blow out a candle? Normally we light a candle at the start of a ritual, but I find it's more appropriate to blow out a candle when you start a descent. It's like you're going away from the light. Will you make the room dark? Will you create an altar that is dedicated to the dark? This is the outer layer, the form of the ritual. And then there's an inner layer, and that is the altered state of consciousness that you need to get yourself into. If you don't get into the state of altered consciousness, then it's just an empty ritual, right? So I have another training for you about moon rituals that you can watch. A full moon is a great time for a descent, so you can design your ritual around that. And you need a clear intention, a set space and time, and a way to go down. And going down means, first of all, surrendering. It means giving up what you're used to. So you will find it very hard to do a real descent in your everyday life, because you need to give all that up if you want to encounter yourself in your real naked bare truth, right? Which is why I recommend you set some time apart for this, make it special somehow, so you can really step away from your ordinary life. Let me check your comments before I continue. That scares me, seeing things. Melissa, what do you mean? Like, can you share more? Any other questions at this point? Any insights that you have around this? Any questions? You can just continue popping them into the comments. Now, what's important to know is that if you want to go down, you will have to give up something for every step you go down. Every new layer you reach, you have to lose something. So once you're there, something happens of its own accord. In going down, you surrender, you let go. And once you're really there, then the third layer of the ritual appears, which doesn't necessarily have to be there in all rituals, but in the ones that are really transformational, the third layer is there, and that's the divine. So this layer obviously can't be forced, right? It doesn't have to happen. It is grace. So to give you an example of what a ritual descent can look like, because it can take on so many different kinds of forms, right? I want to share the extended descent that I did. So let's start with why I wanted to undergo this ritual, which will tell you a little bit about me and my story. Many of you who are new here in this circle, so you're going to get to know me a little bit better right here. Oh, interesting question. What's your take on psychedelics to reach altered state during ritual? Not for beginners, that's my take on it, right? So I started experimenting with microdosing at the beginning of this year. So that's years after I completed my shamanic training, and have been doing this work for so many years without psychedelics. And I think that's really important. That's not a good way to start. Somehow many people think that that's a good way to enter this whole thing, but it's not, because when you take a substance, you can't control what that's going to do to you, right? Whereas when you learn shamanic journeying in a step-by-step way, you open yourself up gradually and safely. You learn how to deal with that openness that you're creating, right? Whereas if you choose to take psychedelics, you just, you're opened by force. And that can have very negative effects. I often have people who come for shamanic healing sessions to me who have literally been destroyed by not having been guided properly, having taken too much of a substance, and losing themselves completely. And that's not just a metaphor. They actually lose themselves. They lose soul parts. That can really happen, because that's what happens in traumatic experiences. Now, obviously, many people have also really great experiences with psychedelics. Barbie, for example, Barbara Ventura, who is my right hand here, in this circle, she knows a lot about plant medicine, and she's a big fan of it. And she's a very cautious, very intuitive, very, careful person, and she loves it, right? But like I'm saying, I don't think it's beginner friendly. So definitely be very careful, right? Only take psychedelics if you feel strongly called to do it. I only started to experiment with it this year because my spirit guide told me to. And I was clearly ready. I had created those pathways for myself step by step. So I was just shown a way to, it wasn't even about the altered state of consciousness. That's very easy to get into just with the trance state. For me, it was really about the substance itself. I was in a really depressed state when I came back from Bali, and when COVID started, I just wanted to get away from here and I couldn't. And I had this whole postpartum depression that I had years and years ago just suddenly flare up again. And I was told by my spirit guide that microdosing with truffles can help. And I did, taking like an even smaller doses than you normally would with microdosing because I'm so sensitive. And it was great. And I did that like a few times and then it was over, and I haven't felt drawn back to that anymore since. So it's definitely not an everyday way of getting into an altered state of consciousness, definitely one that you need to be really careful about. And not one that I recommend as a beginner, and not if you don't have expert guidance. Good, I hope this answers your question, Jessica. Melissa, you're saying, I'm not afraid of seeing anything in my mind's eye, but seeing things that are in my psychic, physical reality, that scares the hell out of me. Like what things, Melissa? Rachel is saying, I use breath work as a way to alter my state of consciousness, which allows me complete control. Yeah, that's beautiful. I do that too, right? I incorporate that into my shamanic practice. I call that shamanic pranayama. So that's amazing. If you're prescribed certain medications, does that affect the journey? I'm sure it does, yeah. It depends on the medication, of course, but medication influences everything, right? Good. So, Melissa, you're saying spirits and guides and such, that those you see with your third eye. And if they are, if they appear next to you and they just look like made of flesh and bone, then it just means that your third eye is very open. You have a very active third eye chakra, and I totally get that. That can be scary. The first time that happened to me, it scared the hell out of me. When you learn journeying, you know how to deal with all of that. Good. So let's talk about my descent, right? And let's start with why I wanted to undergo this ritual. So my name is Lilith, right? I am like a human expression of the dark goddess herself. The dark goddess who gives birth to life and light in the dark. Deeply misunderstood, falsely accused, and cursed. And the start of my life was really filled with light. I had 7 wonderful years that I spent living alongside my mother, a little bit like Persephone, who was a model, a singer, and a music studio manager. And she took me with her to all her work engagements, and I just loved it. She loved me, she was proud of me, she trusted me, I loved her. She was like a mother and a sister at the same time. And then she got cancer and suffered for 2 years, and then she died. And I had 2 baby brothers at the time that I started to take care of then, because my dad was completely emotionally unavailable after that. So I had really taken an involuntary descent into the underworld and plummeted down as far as it gets. And from then on, for 10 years, I felt like I was never really escaping the underworld, right? I mean, I wasn't conscious of what was going on, but that was basically it. The drama, the struggle, the hardship, too much responsibility at an age too young, too much neglect, all of that started to feel like home for me. I didn't know anything else anymore. And, I left home in the hope of, starting my own life. And living for myself. So I moved abroad to sunny southern France, but soon I found the same drama and hardship I had known at home again. Only the players had changed, right? But I was still reenacting the story, still reenacting that trauma. And I was too young and inexperienced to face it all, to understand it all, and to really heal from it. But I did start to understand then that is what was needed, right? I started to understand that my whole life, everything that played out before me was a mirror of what was going on inside. And that I had a lot of power to change things. So I moved to Vienna. I started to study and practice yoga. And the times were still mostly dark. But I did have hope now, that things would get better. And 5 years into yoga, I started studying and practicing shamanism. And more hope, and not just for me, but for others too, emerged. I realized how much the combination of yoga and shamanism could help other women who were also in the clutches of the underworld and who wanted to live an empowered life. So at the same time as my son, my business was born too. And both have been and are to this day like the brightest stars in my universe, my main sources of light. But I was still underground. I left my partner when I realized that he was far from ready to be a supportive father. And as a single mom with no real income, I couldn't find a home. So I was traveling from one place to the other. And whenever I thought I found home, like for example in the eco village Findhorn in Scotland, I suddenly had to leave again. I went to court over custody matters and I just really suffered a lot in the process. And then at the start of last year, start of 2019, I decided I would not have any more drama in my life. So I went deep into myself on shamanic journeys through inner child healing and shadow integrations. And by the end of 2019, there was no more drama. My son's father and I had made peace. I had created a beautiful home base for myself and my son. My business had become highly profitable. I had a stable self-care and healing practice. And then I fulfilled myself the dream of a lifetime, traveling to Bali, where I spent the whole month of January. And on top of it all, my son's father and I got back together. My income doubled when I opened the Shamanic Yoga apprenticeship for the first time. And I had really achieved all of my dreams. All of my intentions for 2019 and then again for 2020, they had come true within, just a few months into the year. But I wasn't really happy. And, in the absence of any more dreams to be fulfilled, I just felt flat. It's like I lost the gusto for life. Where was my passion, my enthusiasm, my joy? And I always notice that this is happening to me when I stop eating. Like I'm this kind of person, I can absolutely just live of, air and sunshine and a little bit of orange juice here and there. But when I do that, at first it feels great. I feel like more alive. I feel everything is intensified. But then I start to move upwards, It's like I'm making my journey into the next life. And then obviously I realize, I've lost interest in being incarnated. And that's not good when you have a son, right? Because obviously I want to live for him and I love him so much and I enjoy him so much. So I was like, okay, I just need to find a way back into my own life. And that's, what really made me realize that I had still not fully emerged from that deep descent that started after my mother died. So it was really time for something radical. And I decided to go on a trip to the south of Italy and would spend 6 days by myself on a ritual descent, so that I could, see where on that path I had gotten stuck and made sure I came fully back up later on. So let me check the comments before I keep talking. I know this is, in lots of the lives, I encourage you to share a lot. This one is pretty much just about me, but please do feel free to share, because I'm sharing this not just to talk about myself, but to really inspire you. So do share, do ask questions. Oh my God, Melissa, you've been writing a book about Lilith. I love that. Yeah, Adam's first wife. Yes. That's beautiful. Good. So the first day of traveling was a first step down into the lower world. It was really, really hard to leave my son for the first time and go on a trip abroad without him. I cried so much at the airport. And obviously I left my partner too. But that was a lot easier than leaving my son behind. I left my country, which actually felt like a relief after 8 months of being here without any traveling. So you see, I had to give up my son, my partner, and my home to start going downwards, to start that descent. And this first day of the ritual was also a geographical descent, since I went south of Austria to Italy. And the second day of my trip, the first full day on the island of Ischia, I plummeted down several more layers. I was alone on the island, I was fasting, and I was on a mountaintop too, so I was away from any hustle and bustle, and I really had to face who I am without my son, without my partner, without my usual surroundings, without my routines, without the food I usually eat. So I felt grief and I was shaken, but I knew I was on the right track because giving up all company and food made me descend further. And the third day felt like a continuous meditation. I was lying in a hammock, swimming in the sea, cuddling with my new cat and dog friends and eating figs from the trees, and I was just being. So I had now truly arrived at this inner layer of myself, and after the inner turmoil of the 2 days before, I really felt at peace. And then, towards the end of that day, I descended further because I gave up my rules about what I eat and what I don't eat, and that's something that I really identify with. So I knew I had to let go of that for now if I wanted to continue on this path downwards. So I really had to relax into being okay with this less perfect, less strict, less demanding, less compassionate version of myself. And the next day, I felt called to visit a place called Cava Scura, an ancient Roman site with natural thermal baths. So I went there and I decided to go there on foot. So I was walking a really long way, basically in the dust next to the racing cars. And then I took the boat and then I walked into the mountain. So I had really given up the comfort of my private driver to be able to continue to descend. And it was a hard journey in the hot sun and walking up steep winding paths. And when I arrived, I really felt pulled back in time. Everything was, like it was in ancient times. The natural spring flowed down beautifully from the mountain and it came out super hot. And I descended further by giving up the comfort of my clothes. And I first washed myself with that hot water pouring down, smelling of sulfur. And then I went into one of the caves, which is a natural sauna that is created by hot steam coming out of the earth. They call it sauna. It's more like a steam bath, actually, but it is really hot because underneath it's all molten lava coming from the volcano nearby, from Vesuve. And so I sat there in the hot and I was taken on a shamanic journey. It happened of its own accord. From the middle world, I descended together with my spirit animal, who was his usual white at first, and then he changed his fur to black as we descended further, and then he left me completely, which has never happened before. And yeah, it's what it's like. To the lowest levels, you have to travel completely alone. That was another sacrifice that I had to make to keep descending. And as I went even further down, I had to leave my bright self behind. I saw my, bright light self at the top of a well, descending a bucket downwards into the well. And there I was in the bucket, being descended, and I was just my dark self, my bare self. And at the bottom of the well, I had arrived in the underworld, and a disembodied voice spoke to me that she would meet me in the bath. Enigmatic message, but I understood instantly that I had to take a bath in the thermal water. But I didn't feel fully ready, something was holding me back. I hadn't descended far enough. So when I walked out of the sauna, I saw, also in a cave, a circle of water, about knee deep. And a few steps led into it at one end, and out of it again on the other end. So I stepped into the first half, which was filled with cold water, and then I walked it until I reached the second half, which was filled with hot water. And I realized that I had been guided into a ritual inside my extended ritual. So I walked this circle many times, cleansing myself in the cold, letting go, making space, descending further, and then walking in the hot water, offering myself to the nature spirits of the hot spring and dedicating this ritual to the one who was waiting for me at the lowest level of the shamanic realm. And after that, I was ready. I had a hot spring bath drawn for me, and I lay down in a small cave that consisted only of a hole in the ground that was filled with water, and it really was like a symbolic grave. So I lay down and I immersed myself in the water, and only my eyes and my nose were left outside of the water. And as I closed my eyes, I was there at the lowest level again with, and with my third eye, I saw the same stone tub I was now lying in, and over me stood a figure in black, the dark goddess. And she takes on a different form for all of us. And I knew that form that I saw very well. It was a dark fairy tale figure that my mother had already been fascinated by, and that most people misunderstand. So she spoke to me of my path and my destiny, and I heard and saw her as clearly as if she had been manifested right there in a body of flesh and bone. And that only happens to me when I go really, really deep into the trance state. And she gave me a practice to do every day that would in time make me fully emerge into the light again, as long as I remembered that descents are a natural part of the cycle and I wouldn't shy away from doing other descents. And the next day was pure bliss. Everything seemed to go my way. I spent the whole day relaxing, and the people I met went out of their way to accommodate even my unspoken wishes. It was really exceptional. For example, someone that I had only spent a few hours with drove me down to a beach, the best beach on the island, paid for a sunbed, bed, drinks and food for me. And when I thanked him and asked how I deserved this royal treatment, he simply said, "I wanted to find a way to thank you. Your presence was a bigger gift to me than I can ever say." And then I met an old taxi driver who decided to take me on a tour around the island for free and told me the most amazing stories from old times, which made me understand the island from a deeper perspective. And I realized, that maybe my whole reason for coming to this island wasn't to receive, but to give. And that was just a beautiful change in perspective. And I remembered the encounters I had with all the different people, and with the animals. Maybe it's because of all the little wasps and the ladybugs and flies that I had come to this place that I had rescued from the pool. Maybe it's because of the mosquitoes that I nourished with my blood, and I just felt, so grateful for everything, even for the mosquitoes. And there was this little cat that had a respiratory disorder who followed me to my room and slept the whole night next to me without waking once. And I did a shamanic healing on him, and the next day when he woke up, he breathed so much easier, and I just felt so grateful to have been there and to be able to help. And then the 6th day traveling back home was very fittingly a new moon. That was 2 days ago. And I was ascending again, and it was beautiful. It was a super relaxed journey on the ferry. And then at the airport, I met someone who was a bright light to me from the first moment. And I hope that he will continue to brighten my life. And being greeted at the airport in Vienna by my partner and my son was another highlight. They had been there an hour early because they were so impatient to see me again, and they had made a sign for me that said Lilith Moon, as if they were like somebody who didn't know me to come and get me. And below it, they had written, "The sky is blue, the roses are red, and yet nothing is the same without you." How beautiful is that? And then when I arrived home, I had an amazing new moon ritual for my apprentices and transformation members. And that was all about the pleasure and the joy of being alive. And that's really what I found again through this descent. And then I went to bed, just really deeply grateful for my life. And that was the end of this ritual descent. So I really hope that you can see the power of a descent, and I hope that you can see the necessity of it too. Let me check your comments for a moment. Emma, you're saying I really can relate to that too, the lack of appetite. Yeah, it's a really interesting one. How do you meet your spirit guide? By learning shamanic journey, Ghana. Everybody has a spirit guide, but you need to be able to know the lay of the land of the shamanic realm, so you can actually meet them. Ah, thank you, Kia. I love that. That's beautiful. You're so welcome. Yes, helping people going deep within, that's basically exactly what I do. Ah, you have been to those caves and baths too? Amazing. On the same ones? Wow, 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 says Rachel. Good. So, the best time to do a descent is when everything in your life is actually going okay. Then you have the stability to go deeper. But if you are already in the midst of turmoil, already in the underworld, then it can really help to do a descent to understand the mess that you're in better and take charge of going down and then also going up again once your work is done. So you can do extended descent like I did, or you can do a lighter version to, first try it. That only takes a few hours, which I recommend. And you can do shamanic descents like I did if you know how to undertake shamanic journeys and you have your spirit guides assist you. Obviously, if you don't know journeying yet, you could do a really simple version of this. You could, for example, choose a staircase in nature where you won't be disturbed, or even in a house where you won't be disturbed, and you can go down step by step very slowly and always give up something, right? Always mourn something as you go down, and really set this intention that you are going down to your deepest self, and when you arrive at the bottom, this is when you are in the underworld, right? And then see what this does to you and how this works out for you. And you could also, for example, dedicate one of your periods to a descent, right? Going down as you start to bleed, and then coming up again as your bleed starts to get lighter again, and design that time however you are inspired to do. And obviously you need to find a way to get yourself into a trance state, which you might do by doing some light fasting. I don't recommend any radical forms of fasting if you're not used to fasting. Obviously you can listen to shamanic drum tape. Lots of different ways to do that. Yeah. And I have something really, really special coming up that I want to share with you, which I am really, really excited about. Oh, let me just check your comments. So many coming in right now. I almost feel that the dark night of the soul is our descent into the underworld. Yeah, exactly. That's a really good word for it, a really good expression for it. That's pretty much what it is, Melissa. Well spotted. Polly, you lost your mom to cancer too. I'm so sorry. You have brought her back to living by starting a floral shop and seasonal greenhouse, learning plant medicine. I love that. I also feel that a lot in what I do. And Rachel, you're saying I actually really relish the descent despite how hard it can be. Yeah, right? Because it is just what we need. It might not be what we want, but it is what we need. And there's a real beauty to surrendering to that. And I am really excited because doing this descent made me realize that I should have done this kind of work years and years and years ago. But of course I couldn't, because I didn't know I didn't have the know-how, right, at the time. I would have needed the awareness of what I needed to do first, and then I would have needed somebody who has been through that same journey before to help me get through it. And, because this is a necessary journey, right? One we complete again and again anyway, but we mostly do it unconsciously. We descend anyway, right? But we do it unconsciously, and then lots of things can go wrong. We can get stuck, like I did, or we can emerge, but having left part of who we are behind. So last year, I did a 7-day online retreat with women from all around the world. It was a New Year's retreat, and it was absolutely amazing. We were fasting, and everybody just got so much out of it. And it was also about releasing the old, calling in the new. And everybody emerged really light and transformed. And I realized that doing a ritual descent as an extended online retreat in a circle of women would just be incredibly nourishing and rewarding for everybody. So I have been really inspired to create this for you. That was part of me coming back when I was sitting on the ferry, when I was ascending again from my ritual. I was like super inspired to create a retreat for you all. So that's what I'm going to offer you. The details are not set in stone yet. Like I said, this inspiration came up 2 days ago, but I always have to run with my inspirations because they always lead to the most amazing things. So all of you who want to participate, you can help me shape this experience to your needs. So here's what I was thinking. I was thinking of doing this over a period of 14 days, starting on a full moon and continuing until the new moon, with a day of preparing and intention setting at the start, followed by 7 days of descending, then spending a day in the underworld, then another day of ascension, then resting for 3 days with no content, no sessions, and then celebrating together on the last day. And I was thinking of having a pre-recorded guided shamanic journey for you daily, so you can do it at your convenience. You're not bound to the live session, but also have a live element to it, because that's just so amazing when we can come together as women and share, and when you can ask questions and have my support. So I was thinking of doing an additional daily live sharing session that would be optional. So this means that you could bring about a big transformation without the need to travel or retreat for the whole day. You would only need like 1 to 2 hours a day to yourself. And fasting would be optional. I will give you my favorite fasting recipes and a plan for different levels of fasting for those who want to add it, but it will be optional. And obviously I will also give you yoga workouts, breathing practices, meditations, anything you need around that, so you can really make it your own and take exactly what you need from everything. And time-wise, I thought about starting on the 30th of December and continuing until the 13th of January. So that would make it really special, like a New Year's retreat at the same time as a descent. I feel that would be really powerful to start the new year that way. I also know that this is a time for many people that is spent mostly with family, which obviously doesn't have to be one or the other. But as an alternative, we could also start on the 17th of February, on the 27th of February, and finish on the 13th of March, which would also be a really nice way to end the winter and welcome spring and the return of light after the darkness. So you can let me know about which dates you prefer. And the times of the live sessions will also be determined by you, and whatever is going to be most convenient for most of you. The energetic exchange will be 1,111 euros and 999 for the early bird, starting now and ending on the 30th of September, and you can pay in 3 installments. Transformation members, don't book through the normal link. Send me a message if you want to join. Also my apprentices, because you get discounts. The spaces will be limited so that I can make sure I can hold space for all of you, and early bird registration is starting today. I have created the link for you already. I'm going to pop it into the comments. This retreat sounds unbelievable, says Melissa. Yeah, this is going to be really, really unbelievable. Like, I did this, like I said, last year to welcome in 2020, and that was just a 7-day retreat, but it was already incredible what happened for the women, like really unbelievable, like whole lives completely shifting around. It was really, really powerful. And also at the same time, very convenient for most people to just, very, very doable, in a practical way. So doing it for 14 days and, with this conscious descent, I think that's going to add another incredible layer of depth to all of that. So beautiful, sounds amazing, absolutely. Good, I love hearing that, beauties. I would love to have many of you there for it. I'm really, really excited for this. It feels like I'm reaching an even deeper level of my purpose. And thank you for being part of that. I hope this session was inspiring, and I hope that many of you will start experimenting with descending. So if you have questions, if you're starting to design your own little descents that you want to do right now, just feel free to ask questions, ask for my input, just make your own post or comment below. And I hope that many of you will join me for this life-changing experience on the retreat. Sending you lots and lots of love for now. Bye bye.